very welcome back to the show. Now, the current crisis has been hard for so many people for different reasons. However, many people in the music industry are really struggling at the moment because they have completely lost their livelihoods, whether that is singers and musicians who are used to being on tour, pub and club DJs, lighting, sound engineers, wedding bands, the list just goes on. Well, a new organisation has launched recently to help people by providing counselling and financial services to them. I'm joined now by singer-songwriter Eleanor McEvoy to discuss this. You're very welcome to the show, Eleanor. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, Elaine, and thanks for having me on.
Now, I think that the very first thing people do in lockdown and the thing that people have reached out for is music. It's the creative arts to lift them out of the funk that many of us are in. If you're in a bad mood, you put on your favourite song. But for, I suppose, the musicians and the people behind all our favourite therapy really at the moment, they're suffering really badly and are kind of forgotten about on this roadmap to recovery.
You're absolutely right, Elaine. The first thing everybody's reaching out for is, when you ask them all what they're doing, they're reading books, they're looking at films, they're listening to music, they're watching live streams on Facebook, etc. And, they're reaching out for that creative content. And, this is really to give some thought to the people who are providing that creative content, the creators. This is an initiative and a well-being support program, if you like, to specially cater for that industry. And it's the first of its kind. There's never been anything like this before.
And how did it come about? Whose brainchild was this?
It's the brainchild of a man called Dave Reed, and he's with you probably know him from the Choice Music Award Prize, but he's also he studied his MA in psychotherapy, and he wanted to put this together with his group First Fortnight, which is a mental health charity, and the whole idea was that it would be specially for the creative community. So what it is it's like a phone line that gives advice on stress, legal advice, financial advice, career advice, life coaching, and it's specially geared towards people in the music industry. Yeah. And the phone line is accessible like here from Ireland, it's accessible from Northern Ireland, it's actually accessible from abroad. So if you're on tour and you're feeling down, you're anxious, you can call this 24-hour phone line. Everything in this is free as well. I think that's really important to mention because this is a crisis that has really hit the creative community financially. We were the first to be affected and will probably be the last to be up and running again. I did my last concert on the 12th of March in Melbourne in Australia, and I had to cut the tour short and cancel the whole tour. And I don't know when I'm going to be back up on stage again. So it's really serious, the repercussions financially.
Yeah, and I suppose like other people, they know when their next paycheck is coming, or for some they know when their next social welfare check is coming or something like that. But if you're a self-employed musician or self-employed in the creative arts, my God, it's a struggle just to exist at the best of times, never mind at times like this. So a lot of people are needing help now.
You're spot on, Elaine. I mean, that's exactly it. It's not that it's ever been easy. It never has. You've constant rejection. You always have financial stress. If you imagine, like, even if you're somebody who gets a paycheck every month, if you imagine for a moment, let's say the money was the same, which it wouldn't be, but let's say the money was the same, and one day it was to come in the 2nd of the month, and the next month it was to come in the 10th of the month, and the next day it was to come in the 26th of the month, that would be really stressful. Now imagine that the amount you're getting is completely varied, and that often you don't know what that amount is going to be in advance. So that's the kind of thing you're dealing with. Now, of course, that income has completely fallen off a cliff, so you're not even getting that. When you put this together with all of the kind of low-level anxiety that a lot of us have at the moment, you're looking at some very possibly vulnerable people,
Yeah, and I often think of when it comes to people in the industry, because my very first job when I left college, I remember I left college on a Friday, the following Monday I started a job on a radio station. I was filling in these Irish Music Rights Organisations forms because you'd fill in the track that we used for an ad and the person who made that music would get that money. And it was that simple, that straightforward. I had 6 months of them to go through. I wasn't too happy at the time, but that's what was happening. But nowadays, you're not, with the digital world the way it's gone, to earn a living in the industry is hugely difficult. Between the streaming services, you've got Netflix, Spotify, people aren't buying CDs, there's no record shops anymore. So all you really have is your gigs to generate income, and God knows when they'll come back.
Absolutely. Well, I do say that we're grateful to you for filling in the forms because that is how our guys get paid. People don't realize it often. If you're, if you're sitting in a hairdresser and there's music playing in the background, the guys get paid. Eventually, they get paid. And all like radio stations now are on full logging. Almost all in Ireland are on full logging. So somebody writes that down or puts it into a computer, and somewhere along the line, our guys get paid. So thank you for doing that for a start. So of course we do still get that if there's broadcast, and that's why it'd be great if all Irish radio stations and all the Irish television stations could do a lot of Irish content. That'd be brilliant because our members would have money coming through then. I would like to say though, it's not just songwriters and musicians that are getting this, that are open to this initiative. Managers, production crews, DJs, sound engineers, lighting engineers, bookers, promoters. Anybody who works in the creative sector can access all of these things for free, which is an extraordinary thing, really.
Yeah, and you've been an extraordinary advocate yourself for women in the industry as well, I know, for many years. I mean, A Woman's Heart, every single person in the country has to know all the lyrics of that song and can sing it. That was the title of the Woman's Heart album. You had the title song, but before that, I didn't realise that you had you were gifted piano. You started piano at 3. You played violin. You studied music in Trinity. I mean, you were playing for many, many years before you kind of came up front and centre. How did that come about? How did you go from behind the scenes and as a songwriter and a musician to actually being in front of the mic?
Well, to be honest with you, I never wanted to be in front of the mic. What I wanted to do was write and arrange music, and that was where my draw was. But I realised over time that you could actually make money from playing, and I used to get a lot of work when I was in college. I got a lot of work in pit orchestras and stuff like that, and as a session musician. So a lot of those in those times you had win Elaine, you had a lot of big studios in Dublin, and they had like a lot of international acts over. So there was a lot of work for people like me in the old days, playing strings behind big bands and acts and things like that. Then I got a job at the symphony orchestra, where you had a salary every week. Haven't had that since I left there. So I got into that, but the whole time, Elaine, to be honest with you, I was writing songs. I'd leave the job, but I'd be sitting up at night coming up with songs. And at some point I said, you know what, Eleanor, you have to go for this. You're either going to go for it now or you're not. So I gave it up, and I sent out demo tapes to record companies, to publishing companies. And eventually I got record company interest, and Geffen Records then signed me on a worldwide deal to Geffen Records. And that's kind of how it all kicked off. And I have to say, for all the uncertainty, I don't regret it for a second. It's a privilege and a pleasure to do what I do, and I absolutely love it.
And you know what, you've such a fantastic body of work as well to give us all. And I know your music has helped a lot of us through these times as well. But I often wonder, when you've been touring for, God, decades now, and this is probably the longest you've sat still or been in the one place for years. How are you finding the whole lockdown experience?
It's the longest I've had in one bed in over 30 years. Which is extraordinary. Wow. And that's another kind of thing when people don't realize when you're on the road. Like, I wake up in the middle of the night, and most nights you don't know where you are. You haven't a clue where you are. And I used to think, God, it's just I'm a bit flaky, or I'm really forgetful. But now I'm realizing I've had all this night in one bed. It's not. It's just the constant traveling. And a lot of the time you get up and it doesn't bother me. It doesn't upset me. I don't get anxious about it. But it's a bit of a drag, and you go to the plug sockets because that gives you some clue, and you think, oh, I'm in America, or oh, I'm in Australia, or I'm in Europe. I don't know where, but I'm somewhere in Europe, and eventually you figure it out. And it's not to say that it's distressing, but it is unsettling. And to be honest, Elaine, I've only discovered that in the last couple of months, that it is actually unsettling, because it's amazing to wake up every morning in the same bed and have the same light coming into the room, and it's given you a kind of a deep relaxation. And talking to some of my colleagues, I think a lot of them are finding it as well. So you have this weird anxiety about one side of the industry, but there is a kind of an upside to it as well. So.
Yeah, I suppose you have time to think. And are you taking this as an opportunity to take a rest and take a break? God knows it won't be happening again. Or are you going, no, pressure to write, pressure to write, pressure to write, I have to get stuff done?
I'm doing. I'm just started doing a lot of writing. Yeah, and well, it was at I'm chairman of the board of IMRO. So as soon as I got back from Australia, there was an awful lot of work to do there. Because everything changed there very suddenly. But no, I'm writing a new album at the moment. It's called "Gimme Some Wine." I'm just going to start recording it now in a couple of weeks. I'm hoping to start recording it, and it'll be out in the autumn. So yeah, that's kind of my current focus is that. I'm also doing a bit of chalk painting. I'm mad into chalk painting, so did that for the weekend. I got an old bureau and
Give me some wine.
Some
I can hear every woman in the country roaring, laughing at the very title of that album already. I say it'll be a hot seller for the Christmas market. But listen, thank you so much for joining us today. And before we go, just remind us how anyone who's out there who may be in need of this resource can get in touch with Mind Creative Minds.
Okay. Well, the best way is go to the website. It's mindingcreativeminds.ie. But there's also a phone line, which is 1-800-814-244. If you're calling from Northern Ireland, it's 0800 090 3677. And there is actually an international number as well. Yeah. So but mindingcreativeminds.ie. You can get a full thing there of who's of how the services involved. And I should give a shout out to the people who funded it. IMRO, obviously IRMA, RAP, Universal, BAI, the RTE Choice Music Prize. There's been a lot of people who have helped to fund it.
And badly needed really at this stage for a lot of people who badly need these services. Eleanor, thank you so much for joining us. And I can't wait for your next album. I really can't.
Thanks very much.
Now we'll take a quick break. But when we come back, our agony aunt will be here to help out with any crisis you may have. Don't go anywhere.